Good evening and welcome to Flat Earth UK Live. Joining me tonight is the host of Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole and Truth is Stranger Than Lies, David Weiss. Welcome to Flat Earth UK.
Hey, thank you, Nathan. Really glad to be here. I know we've been trying for a while to get this interview together. Looking forward to it.
Well, I'll be honest, David, the feeling is not mutual. Ultimately speaking, you think we live on a globe, and this is a retardation of fundamental principles that we have known for centuries. So maybe you can start off the show by telling us how you've come to this quite ludicrous notion that the Earth is in fact flat.
Well, I realized by observation, experimentation, just looking at what they've been telling us, and realized it makes absolutely no sense. This is one of those things that we're indoctrinated with from preschool. Every movie, every television show, everything is telling us we live on a ball, and there's a reason for that. But if you actually look into it, you will see there is zero evidence that we live on a spinning, wobbling ball flying through space in 4 different directions at incredible speeds that no one could ever measure, feel, see, and that we live on a flat, stationary, motionless, that's redundant, plane.
Well, without basically flying in the face of everything you say, we've got proof that we live on a globe. Men have been to the moon, and on the way they had a very good look at where we live. So we've got pictures of where we live, and it's a globe.
So obviously you're either compromised or have done no looking at all at the evidence. There's a video called "The Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon" that shows how they faked pictures of the Earth through a circular window. If you look at the technology of how we got there, it's ridiculous. The moon lander is ridiculous. Recently NASA was applauding SpaceX or Virgin, whoever it was. He got 50 miles into the air or whatever the number was, and they were all applauding, with nobody on it. But in 1960s, we went numerous times in orbit to the moon, around the moon, landed on the moon in a paper mache lander, and there's absolutely no proof we went to the moon, Nathan. You're ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I find that notion quite farcical. There are quite literally hundreds of thousands of people that go to work each day creating equipment that is going to leave our planet. And this is the equipment that gives us the proof. There's no doubt that these people aren't all being coerced into lying about the globe. It seems, well, it doesn't seem, it is ludicrous.
There's not hundreds of thousands of people. There may be thousands of people, and it's all very compartmentalized. You know this, Nathan. And they may be building a piece of it. They have no idea what the guy in the next office is doing. And only the people at the very top, who are all Freemasons, know what's going on. We never went to the moon. There are no satellites, and the International Space Station is nothing more than the International Fake Station.
Well, I mean, before we get to the International Space Station, which I will get to, you say I haven't looked, and I have looked. I've got a telescope, and when I look above me, it's very clear what I see. The moon, for a start, which is there daily, is a sphere, and every star I look at is spherical. And if everything above me and around me is spherical, we must be spherical. We live on a globe because everything around us is globular.
Well, that's not a good argument. I mean, if you go into the forest, there's trees all around you. Are you a tree?
I think you're descending this into farce. I think you'll agree. I mean, if you don't want to use the stars as an example because you're scared of them, I'll happily use a different one. We've got the sun. I watch the sun set on multiple times, and it sinks below the horizon. It's very clear and obvious daily proof that we spin on a globe.
Well, just getting back to the stars for a second, when you look up in the sky, you see points of light. That's all you see is points of light. You don't know what they are. You don't know if they're pure energy. You don't know how far they are, how big they are. We're told that light travels for billions of years unobstructed, but that's untrue. A simple experiment you could do is get one of those, what are you shaking your head at? you, you get
People
a
have been
strong spotlight.
for thousands of years. They've tracked them. They know their motions, and we've calculated what they do and how they do it.
There's
You've got people who've studied this at length.
There's other explanations, that come up with the same result. Closer, smaller stars, you can't tell the motions or how fast they're going until you know what distance they are or what size they are to determine their distance. Getting back to the sun, and you said sunsets. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's something I've been specializing in. And I want to put a thank you out to one of the biggest trolls out there is Jeff Clown, who's really pushed me to look into it, because there's two types of sunsets. You said you've seen the sun set. Well, what you're seeing is the sun's either setting behind a mountain range, a visible cloud layer that is higher than the horizon, or in the distance where on a cloudless day, you're still seeing it set behind a moisture layer, which is 10, 20, 30, 40,000 feet in the air above the horizon. But in the distance, it's indistinguishable from the ground horizon, and you just lose it due to perspective. I have a video on my channel, which is DITRH. It's called How the Sun Sets on a Flat Earth. Obviously, you have not done your research and seen that.
Well, I don't think it's necessary when there's obvious, more fundamental proof that we live on a globe. I mean, we're getting down to finicky details that don't prove we're on a globe when there's things like the ISS giving us 24-hour live footage of us on a globe. I mean, how can you possibly ignore that?
You can't ignore it because it's actually a comedy to watch it. I know if you've looked at it and actually engaged your brain, you'll see that they don't get the angles right. They don't show the continents in the right position. None of it makes any sense. And I've done a lot of videos recently on my YouTube channel called the International Fake Station, where we've caught them using blue green screen technology, chroma key technology to fake what they're doing, using zero-G plane flights and editing the pieces together. There's all sorts of tricks that they do. They've been clearly busted, and the International Space Station is nothing other than the International Fake Station.
I mean, I disagree. It looks very realistic to me. And we're on other places. I mean, we've been to Mars. We're there now. We're on Mars right now.
Are we? I mean, who told you that? NASA? NASA is a Freemasonic fake agency. You think we're on Mars because the rover is still working with its amazing battery technology and its solar panels in a dusty environment that are able to transmit, across massive distances when, cell towers can't even transfer, 30 miles sometimes. How is that battery still working? How come they haven't shared that amazing battery technology with us?
I mean, the technology is fantastic. I mean, I've got a really powerful processor in my phone, and the phone lasts all day.
All day? I mean, what about decades? Does it last decades?
Again, you're descending this into farce. I don't have solar panel technology on my mobile phone, and obviously the landers on Mars do. So it's pretty simple to keep those batteries running for a very long time. Not to mention the fact that I hear conspiracy theorists all the time saying that things are being hidden from them. Well, there's no reason to believe that NASA haven't got much better technology than they actually tell us about, and their batteries are probably leagues ahead of what we have.
So they're hiding the battery technology that we paid for. They have amazing solar panels. I happen to be in the solar industry, and I know how many panels they would need at that distance to charge up a little battery that wouldn't send a signal all the way home, and it can't be done on the little Mars rover. I believe Jeranism has found video of where they were filming, faking the scene on Mars in Greenland or in Iceland. I think it was Greenland.
I mean, I've seen those videos, and obviously anybody who's out there creating footage that might be for teaching purposes is going to have other destinations that they're going to want to film to make comparisons. I mean, you can't draw the conclusion just because there's lunar rovers out in Greenland, and obviously they're not lunar rovers, they're just remote control vehicles. That doesn't mean that they're faking it out on Mars. We see the pictures. I mean, they're not going to lie to us about this. And the people who concur this information, work at universities. I mean, with all due respect, who are you to challenge people with letters after their name?
You know, they're the ones that are lying to us from the beginning. They're the ones that brought us the official story on 9/11, Sandy Hook, Boston, and all of the other crap out there, which have been proven to anybody with, you know, that takes the time to look. You don't even need a half a brain to see that they're all fabrications. It's coming from the same control system, and it's all to keep us separated from who we truly are and depowered in a lower vibration of fear.
I mean, I've certainly looked at some of your videos, and on occasion you've mentioned something called the truth movement. Perhaps you could explain to anybody who's watching exactly what that is.
The truth movement is not a move. It's not a movement. It's like, it's the number of people that are doing independent research on their own, looking at facts, verifying information rather than just believing whatever the mainstream media tells them, which is what most of the world does. They just believe what they're told. They don't check. So the truth movement is people that are questioning things and actually using the scientific method.
But what you're implying is that when I watch my television set, the people who tell me the information on the news are intentionally trying to deceive me, and I just can't accept that.
Well, the people that are telling you the information are probably just puppets reading the teleprompter, and they may or may not know. Somebody like, you know, Anderson Pooper, he is obviously in on it from the highest level, and will do anything to perpetuate the lies that we live under.
I mean, we've gone slightly off topic here. I mean, I'm here because ultimately speaking, I think this nonsense of flat Earth needs to be sorted out. And there's many, many proofs beyond what we've already discussed. Things like the moon, if you go to the southern hemisphere, the moon is upside down. And obviously that's not at all possible if we live on a flat plane.
Well, Nathan, if you put a picture of the moon on your ceiling and looked at it and then walked to the other side of your flat room, would it be upside down? Yes.
Well, that's not the actual moon though, is it? That's just a plate on a ceiling.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. I'm simulating. Put the actual moon on your ceiling and then go to the other side of the room. I have another video, which I forget the name of it, but it proves that on a flat Earth, I show in an experiment, when you pass the equator where the moon is, it's upside down. It's simple.
Well, I mean, you say this is so simple, but 99.9% of people think we live on a globe. I mean, why would they all be wrong? Why would you feel that you're more right than everybody else who thinks it, including people with PhDs and doctorates?
99% of those people, including the ones with PhDs and doctorates, willingly and drink rat poison every day and calcify their brains. And some of them even insist on it, you know, taking in extra when they do. So that doesn't make them right. They're ridiculous.
But they have fundamental proof. They've got the gravity equation. I mean, it's fairly straightforward to demonstrate. I mean, I've got a pen here. All I've got to do is release this pen and gravity pulls it towards the ground. This is a proven fact.
So if that's called electromagnetism is what the force is that's doing that, and density. I can defy gravity with a magnet, and we have the maglev train. Well, that's defying gravity, or is it defying electromagnetism?
I mean, I don't have these letters after my name, so I mean, I can just throw up another proof that we live on a globe. There's a guy called, I think it's Felix Baumgartner, I think his name was, and he rose up very, very high. And what did he jump back towards? A globe.
Yeah, well, if you looked at that picture, when he jumps out, New Mexico covers 3/4 or half of the Earth. It was a low altitude jump. Again, he is more dense than the air up there, if he even jumped at all, and he is looking for a it's electromagnetism that pulls things down, and that's it. I don't have letters after my name either, but you can prove electromagnetism with experiments, but you cannot prove gravity.
But what he jumped towards, and it was clear to see in the pictures, he got higher and he jumped off and he was jumping towards a globe-shaped Earth. I mean, that's a simple, straightforward proof that we live on a globe.
So Nathan, you haven't even been thinking. You need to engage your brain. The picture that they showed had a way bigger curve than the space station, which was way higher than him. So they're lying. That's a curved lens. You know this deep in your head, deep in your heart. And why is it that you are pushing this nonsense?
Well, because it seems really obvious. I've known it for a very long time. It's what they teach us in the schools. I mean, things like the star constellations. How can you possibly have different star constellations, again, in the southern hemisphere, if we're not on a globe? It doesn't make any sense. You would see all of them if we lived on a flat plane.
See, that's not true. It's the same thing. It's the laws of perspective. The stars are low and close. And as you move across the Earth plane to the outer southern hemisphere plane, you can no longer see the stars due to perspective.
No, I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, there's multiple proofs. You can't debunk them all. There's things like the Coriolis effect. If I pull out my plug in the northern hemisphere, it will turn clockwise. If I pull out the plug in Australia, it will turn anti-clockwise. I mean,
Well,
this proves that we are on a spinning ball, and the effect has been well tested, well investigated. It's called the Coriolis effect.
So that has not been well investigated. It actually has, and it's been proven wrong, even in the same household, depending on the shape of the drain and the angle that the water enters, the water will spin in different directions. There is, it spins clockwise, depending on how the toilet or the sink is made. And the same, it doesn't matter where you are. Some houses, it'll spin in both directions. In the same sink, it'll spin in both directions. So you're wrong.
Well, I'll just rattle up another one then. I mean, there's something that without the globe and the way it works, it wouldn't work. I mean, I've got a phone, I've got a GPS system, and without thousands of proofs of the globe which spin around us called satellites, these things simply wouldn't work. My phone wouldn't give me my position and my GPS wouldn't work.
So there was a system called the Loran system. It was a radio tower based system before satellites were ever in space, and it used to work perfectly. And then they came out with computer graphic overlay for the coordinates, and it shows you exactly where you are. Isn't it funny that we have all of these satellites going around the Earth, but there's no GPS unless there's land in sight? When you're out into the southern outer oceans, or even between California and Hawaii, there is no GPS. Explain that.
Why would people lie about this?
The reason they lie about it is to keep us separated in a consciousness of limitation, fear, disconnected. The last thing they want us realizing is that we are powerful beings, and there is a creator. And it's all about control. The people that run this planet, if they're even people, are satanic. They worship Satan or whoever it is. They do unspeakable things, and they are trying to control us. But luckily, they have to tell us what they're doing, and that way, if we don't say no, it means yes in their world. So they stick it right in front of our faces, and people are just too fluoridated to realize.
I mean, you say they stick it in front of our faces, and I mean, I watch plenty of television, and it doesn't seem to matter what show I watch. There's
obviously you watch lots of television.
I mean, we see on TV screens and on my computer. I see globes on all of it. It can't all be total fabrications. It can't possibly all be lies, can it?
It's all lies. I used to think some of it was lies, but it's all lies. There might be one or two little things they throw in there, but everything on mainstream is done with a purpose. It's legal in America for the Obama actually changed the law to make it legal to lie to the people on the news. It's legal to lie. Why would he do that?
Well, I don't know why he'd passed that particular law. But let's just say for a moment, we accept what you say as being true. The Earth is flat. Who cares? We've still got to pay our taxes. We've still got to go to work each day. So who cares if it's flat?
Well, that's where you're wrong, because if you realize the deception and you stop feeding the machine, taxes are completely unconstitutional here in the United States. And as soon as people realize that, they won't have to pay their taxes. They won't have to live in scarcity. They will realize that there is free energy, there is abundant food, there is beautiful blue skies, that they can stop chemtrailing for whatever that reason is. There's so much. Once the lie system is broken, we will be free. As they say, the truth will set you free. And right now, we are literally living in the matrix.
You know what? I think I'm convinced.
It's about time. I really hated you during that.
I quite enjoyed
no,
that.
That wasn't fun at all. I hated that. I want to kill myself. Wow.
Maybe you can start off by having a bit more of a friendly interview with me now. Drop the persona of globe proponent.
You know what? Actually, I'm convinced. You're right. It is a ball.
That's it. Actually, yeah. I don't know what I'm saying. I knew all along it was a ball, and that wasn't an act.
It's so crazy that people actually will fight like that and mean it. It's amazing. Uh-oh, you just froze up. You just froze up.
I'm back, feeling good.
All right, I'm back too.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
It's all right.
Let's resume. David, can you tell us a bit about your little discussion that you had with Bart Sabrell?
Oh, Patricia and I?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we talked to him in between segments. We interviewed him on Truth is Stranger Than Lies. And, talking about the moon stuff was very interesting. But we were showing him stuff. He doesn't believe in the flat earth. And that's okay. We tried to show him stuff, but it was a little like the discussion we just had with you. Refuse to look at the evidence.
Yeah, so it's always cognitive dissonance. It seems you can present people with as much information as you like, and there'll be that disconnect where they just simply won't accept what you're saying.
Yeah, a lot of people say, and good researchers out there will say, you know what, it's a psyop. By the way, it's the craziest psyop ever. I mean, it's the most amazing done psyop ever with all the evidence. But they used it to discredit other things. A recent a guy that I like, I'll even say his name, Ron Johnson. He does great stuff. He recently became convinced that NASA is a complete and total hoax. But he's saying that because NASA is tied to the flat earth, that's why the powers that be are letting this flat earth stuff come out just to cover, to match it up with NASA so people dismiss NASA being fake. It was the reason that the flat earth psyop is out there is to make the whole NASA fakery look ridiculous.
So let me get this straight. You're saying that they released the idea that the flat earth exists. So based on the idea that we think so I have to assume that I live on a globe right now. And based on that assumption, they've released the false idea that the earth is flat so that when people attach themselves to this idea, it discredits that NASA's nonsense when people figure out that flat earth is nonsense. Is that right?
That's pretty much it. But let me say, this was just something that he was fleshing out. I'm sure give him another day or week, he's on his way to being a flat earther. But just like I learned about the flat earth, actually before I learned about NASA. And I still believed in satellites and the moon trips, and I knew the earth was flat. And then I was like, oh my God. But it's where are they going with that? I totally lost it. See, they just zapped me. I just got zapped.
I don't know. I mean, that's something I didn't get to ask you because of the way the show started off, which was pre-planned, by the way, anybody who was wondering. How did you actually find out? What was the penny drop moment?
That's where I was going. I'll get to that in a second. It was once I realized it. I do a lot of work with 9/11 Sandy Hook in Boston. I have a Facebook page called Exposing the Big Three. It's just about those. And it's because I believe that if you wake someone up to one of those, once you're awake to one, it's like taking the red pill. You become awake to everything. You're willing. It literally unlocks your mind, and you're able to see what's going on. So I did not mention the flat earth because I was afraid it would discredit everything I've done. But then I finally looked, I said, the truth is the truth. I got to say it because the truth is the light, and the light always beats the dark. So how did I get into it? My Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole podcast, people were sending me messages, Facebook posts, hey, check this flat earth stuff out. And it's the same story as everybody else. Delete. Won't even look. Ridiculous. And there was a point where I was banning people for posting multiple times. I'd ban them. I'm like, you're out. You're not even allowed to post here anymore. And then finally, another researcher that I trust said, just watch this video. And same story as everyone else. I watched it and I'm like, oh my God, let me look. And for 2 weeks, literally, I slept holding my computer, listening to podcasts, watching for 2 weeks. Like somebody had to bring me food because I would not leave the computer. And then I came out and I'm like, Jesus, the earth is flat.
Do you remember what that first video was that you were sent?
I believe it was a combination of Flat Earth Clues and some Eric Dubay stuff back when he was doing good stuff.
I don't know. I still think Eric Dubay does do some good stuff. He's just his ego takes over a little bit, but a lot of the research he does is still sound.
Absolutely. And, people give him, say he's just copying other people's stuff. You know what? That's what we all do. The videos that I make, other people are making videos. I'm like, you know what? That's cool. And then I add another piece, and someone takes mine and they add another piece. And that is how this hive mind works. People say, hey, can I mirror your video? I'm like, this is a note to everybody. Take any of my videos, download them, edit them, put your name on them, mirror them, do whatever you want. I don't care. Just make good videos, get them out there. So
did you see the ODD TV? Someone gave me a right earful for calling it Odd TV, but he put together some bits and bobs from Rob Skiba and various other people. Did you see that video?
I watched it 3 times. It's fantastic. I watch all of his stuff. It's so good. I love his videos. And there is a formula. People, I put music behind most of my videos, and a lot of times I put this silly clown music because it's a joke. But there's a reason. 1 in 100 people say, why are you putting music behind there? Blah, 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 and the music's there is because the words don't matter. And people I cater to the short attention span, which is they really have us in a Twitter mentality, 144 characters, and then they tune out. So I found that if you do put a little emotional music in there, it holds your attention. And you know what? It holds my attention. I short circuit a lot of times, but once you're interested in something, then you could really focus on it. But if you're finding a flat earth video for the first time and it's got some music that'll hold you in there for 3 minutes instead of 30 seconds, it does it. And it's enjoyable.
You're talking about short videos, and that's quite a nice little segue into, I think it was your most recent video where you show somebody on the ISS, a young lady on the ISS, actually having a little salon moment and rinsing water through her hair. But talking of sort of short moments, can you maybe give us a bit of an explanation to what you caught there?
So what's going on in these videos, there's different ways that they show us ISS footage. They're either hanging upside down here on Earth using a green screen background, which my most recent video shows, and there's a lot of people making lots of versions that are even far better than mine. But they also do zero-G plane clips. But in the zero-G plane, they only get about 30 plus or minus seconds of weightlessness or semi-weightlessness. So in the zero-G plane, they film these things sideways. They film them upside down. So you can't get a sense of what's going on. And in her explanation on how the ridiculous way that they wash their hair in space, they have these little white flashes, the same actually white flashes I use editing between scenes, and your mind doesn't see them. And so I broke it apart, and each segment is like 4 seconds, 18 seconds, 7 seconds, 9 seconds. There's nothing longer than, I don't even think anything hit over 20 seconds. And they edited it together. And if you flick back and forth in between scenes, you'll see that her hair is completely different, you know, because they can keep all the things on the wall in the almost same place, but her hair, you know, this clump is now no longer there, you know, and they must have done it in 20 or 30 takes. I just basically broke it out so you can see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the magic of Hollywood, but to my eyes, they seem like they're almost a step behind. But the other one, I think this was actually more recent, was the Tim Peake bits and bobs, again, without stealing your thunder.
The Tim Peake one, yeah. So President George W. Bush, traitor and murderer, was being wheeled through the NASA, and Gabby Gifford, another traitor to humanity, was in the room, and everyone in that room knows what's going on. They should be in prison for the rest of their lives, if not hung. And the camera, either accidentally or on purpose, for reasons that we can speculate on, caught a screen that showed Tim Peake in front of a chroma key green screen. And we found the footage that matches up to that scene, not the exact match up, but you can see that he, you know, I'm not even sure if he was on the zero-G plane or if he was just in a studio. I think he was just in a studio.
I think he was just in a studio. Yeah.
I mean, somebody who did it. It was asshole, flat Earth asshole. He's like, hey, I'm in the space station, and it looked really good. I'm in the space station. Oh, hold on. This is all they're doing. And they hold their arms like this, because if I let my arms go, watch what happens. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's such amateur hour. It's unbelievable. And I'm really offended because of the hundreds of billions of dollars they've taken for us. They could do a much better job and give us a better show. I mean, literally, if we went to a movie that showed real NASA footage, we'd all walk out and want our money back. We're like, this is B-rated crap.
Well, they have the pre-programming be of really high quality, like movies like The Martian or whatever predictive programming they're feeding with us at the moment. But that's always of a really high standard. So Gravity is an excellent looking movie. It's really polished. But then you get to the NASA stuff, and as you say, it just looks like garbage. Right.
I don't know why. I mean, it might be because they don't care. They want to see how stupid we are or whatever. You know, The Martian. NASA announced like a month ago that they're planning on growing potatoes on Mars. I saw an article that they're planning on growing potatoes on Mars for the Mars mission. I think that's already canceled, but I watch people's reaction to this and have no idea. And they're like, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, that's from the movie. They've been programmed into accepting that that's a good idea. It's like Arthur C. Clarke said, hey, satellites are going to go around Earth. And then all of a sudden there's satellites and everyone's like, of course, that's a great idea, you know? And that
to the moon, was it called Rocket to the Moon?
What's that?
Is it Jules Verne?
Oh yeah. So they literally write stories to program us into accepting the idea. If we came up with satellites and Jules Verne did not write that book about satellites, it'd be a lot harder for our brains to accept what was going on. But they feed it to us first, and then they say, oh no, it's real, and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's real.
I mean, have you found it easier with time? Because especially with that cut that you showed with the lady shampooing her hair, it's not something that, I'll be honest, even after the first watch of it, I didn't quite get what you were showing. It took a few seconds for it to actually sink in, even though you're literally highlighting it. But it is so subtle, and it does take a certain type of person to spot that. Has that got easier with time?
If you take any NASA footage and just watch it, maybe it's because I use those same edits in my videos, the fade to white rather than a fade to black, and I'm just more accustomed to seeing it. You know, we watch television shows that don't show the same scene for more than a second or two or three, you know, how everything's changing, and people don't notice it. We're just used to movie edits.
That's it. Occasionally you'll get some quite clever directors. I know Hitchcock used to do this, where he'd very cleverly keep a continuous shot going, or at least that's how it would appear to the observer, whereas in reality he's cutting to things that look very similar, and that's where the edit takes place, and you just don't notice unless you know how the technique's being used. And that's something that you've basically done. You're spotting the technique and then highlighting it back to us, and that's really nice.
Yeah. So every you know, I keep looking for other NASA videos, and every single one I look at, I'm like, oh my God, this is a video, but it's going to take me 10 hours to make. And you know, there's one which I hadn't seen that I just saw yesterday about how the bathroom works. I mean, did you look at that toilet? And she's showing and she's sticking her hand in the toilet. I'm like, that thing would be disgusting. I mean, think about a toilet here on Earth where you have tons of running water, how dirty it gets. Well, they got this dry toilet. I mean, and you got to think, in space, motion sickness, eating that crap food, there's not normal bowel movements going on. There's all sorts of disasters. That would be in a hermetically sealed room that if there was an accident, the astronaut on the inside could press a button and just eject that pilot, I mean, that astronaut into space, because it wouldn't be worth.
Pristine. It looks like it's never, ever been touched.
It could never be used. Could you imagine sitting on that little toilet? No. It's ridiculous.
The risk of it sucking your insides out.
Yeah.
It's back to Bart Sobral. I know he touched on it a little bit a while ago, but I mean, can you break down what Bart Sobral actually exposed to? He didn't really expose it on your show with Patricia, but he talked about it.
What are we talking about? I'm not sure I know where you're going with this.
Bart Sobral basically exposed a few things, which was how they faked getting pictures of Earth from space in what looked like a high altitude plane. I've kind of stolen your moment by saying that.
Well, you mean, are you talking about how they faked the go on, beat it. How they faked the picture of the Earth using the window?
Precisely.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't expose that on my show. That's what his movie's about, where they turn the lights out in the cabin of whatever they were flying in, and they zoomed in on a round window showing the Earth, and they even put an insert in the window to make the Earth look like it was half lit, and they accidentally turned the light on before they stopped the shot, and it showed how they faked it. I mean, you know, Jeranism and other people were showing pictures of the Earth and other planets, but they're, you know, Rob Skiba did it, but they were frying pans. They were, you know, dirt in his backyard, you know, looking through a circle. I mean, you can make anything look like a planet. It's amazing.
Sure. You got people like Matt Howland pointing out with, you know, evaporation patterns and fractal mathematics, how you can get bizarre illusions from paint effects and turn them into planets as well.
Anything could be a planet. It's absolutely crazy. Jeranism has a new video out in the last 24 hours that showed a spot in Arizona that they dropped bombs on, or small bombs, to make craters and make it look like the moon. And he showed it, and he's like, you know, this is the moon. And you're like, yeah, okay, it's the moon. And they're like, no, it's not. It's Arizona. You know, where, you know, why are I forgot who asked this question. It was in someone's video. Why are all of the craters on the moon spherical, perfectly round, not spherical? Why are they round? Wouldn't they be coming in from all angles, creating all sorts of long gashes? And they're all round. They all hit at perfect, you know, square to the ball.
And not only that, if the side that faces us is the side that's being hit, surely that means, again, if they're completely straight on, that the trajectory would have to come from Earth. It would have to be coming from us in order to hit that way.
Of course. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's, unless they happen before it got here. I mean, the whole moon story is ridiculous. You know, we're supposed to believe that the massive gravity of the sun is holding the Earth in an orbit around it, perfectly consistent for millennia. But the gravity of the Earth is holding the moon, because it's so close to the Earth, But when the moon goes around, if my microphone is the sun, when the moon goes around the Earth, it doesn't slow down when it's moving away from the sun and speed up when it's going back towards the sun, because the gravity from the sun is negated by the gravity of the Earth. I mean, it's why would
it's evidence from millions of years ago, or a very, 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 very long time ago, and it's things along the lines of a planet that was in stationary orbit around our sun smacks into the early Earth. The debris that's left over coalesces into our moon, but the majority of that planet that hits the Earth is left with us, so we end up with an oversized iron core which accounts for the electromagnetic fields. And you're like, how has anybody come up with this complete and utter rubbish?
Nathan, I have to go. ODD just TV just uploaded a video, so I have to go watch it right now. No, I'm just kidding. I just got a notification. So everybody, after we're done with this, before you go to the Ginger Fest, watch ODD's new video. I'm sure it's awesome. The thing as a child learning about our amazing galaxy and solar system, I never could understand why all of the planets and all of the comets and everything are coming in across the same plane. Why aren't they coming in from all different angles? And I never got a real answer. And somebody said because the sun is spinning and its gravitational wave is spinning out, holding on to everything in this plane. I'm like, that's ridiculous. But it's because everything is orbiting over our flat plane.
Yeah, same with the stars, same with the sun, same with the moon. We say orbiting, but I was recently on a phone conversation with Lawrence Wright, and he was quick to point out to me that you have the sun traveling over the equator and it doesn't curve, it doesn't have any arc to it. I know this is very deep, flat earth subjects, but it kind of proves that the sun doesn't travel with an arc to it. Would you agree?
Well, I haven't seen proof that it doesn't travel with an arc. Some of the time-lapse video I've seen sure looks like it does have an arc. Again, when you circumnavigate the planet, a pilot, he doesn't realize he's making an arc, but he is. He's going straight in his mind, but he doesn't realize that he's taking a right-hand or a left-hand turn the whole time, to the slightest degree. And it would be the same for our observation of the sun and the moon. I know that there's lots of controversy. Lawrence is the guy that does the show with Lori. Is that the same Lawrence? Yes. Okay. So, they don't believe in the AE map. Well, you know what? Neither do I. But it sure is fairly. It's closer than the globe map. I can't really get into his sinusoidal map. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm not completely negating it, but I need some more proof. But I brought up that we don't know the distances between continents except for what NASA tells us. The only timer that we have is the sun, and the sun comes back to where it was 24 hours later. So I'm looking at my flat Earth clock right now. And I know that the sun is setting here, and it's going to be rising in Australia. Well, that is on a curved map that I'm looking at. You've seen my flat Earth clock, right? It's basically I use the AE map, and it's on a clock. So, do I think that's the best map we have right now? Yeah. Does it matter what the true map is? No. It doesn't. I mean, it'd be nice to know, but the Earth is flat, does not move. We're not spinning and flying through space in 4 different directions at once.
But do you not think that's something that we should be absolutely outraged by? I mean, if we just accept that we don't have a map.
No, we should be outraged, but until we do, they've had 500 years or whatever to come up with their BS system. We've had less than a year to figure it out, and man, have we done a good job. There's so much information coming out. I believe that the sun does curve, and I'm going to try to prove it. If you look at the midnight sun video of from from the Arctic, from the north, it sure looks like that sun is going in a nice curve. I don't believe that the sun doesn't curve, but I am open to proof of it either way.
Sure. I mean, we touched on this a little bit earlier, and you even mentioned somebody by name. So Jeff C, he gets another mention, but he was part of the truth movement and looking at things like 9/11 along with yourself. And why is it that people like that don't accept new truth or even brace against it quite severely?
That is, I used to follow Jeff C. He was like one of the first Google Hangout guys, doing this truth stuff. And when I say follow, I used to watch his shows because he had a lot of good information, with these color codes and all of this stuff, and whatever else he was talking about. But then Transasia happened, and I was actually on his show, I think, a couple times, and Red Pill, who's now Truth Media Revolution, and myself and John Laban and some others were like, no, it looks fake. And he came out with ridiculous arguments, and he just didn't get it. So we kind of had a little war going on there. I have a playlist on my YouTube channel called Jeff Clown. And it's the videos that show our disagreements, and they're kind of funny. But
well, I mean, it's a pretty serious thing. I mean, to quote Ben or Matrix Decode, he said, to quote him, Jeff C single-handedly divided the truth movement. Would you agree with that?
I think he single-handedly divided the people that were following his channel, and he set us off as explorers going in different directions without following something. I think by Jeff, if I could speak, by Jeff screwing up so bad, I think he freed us from following somebody and got more people doing their own thinking. Like if he hadn't done that, I'd really be following his lead. But now I'm making my own lead, and I think he did a good thing. It's kind of like breaking up, the phone companies. There's more there's competition, but I don't call it competition. There's different people doing different experiments, and as I said earlier, the light will always win. The truth will come out.
I mean, without opening an old wound, the Transasia flight was the thing that pretty much put the cat amongst the pigeons. Can you give us your version of what Transasia, not what it did to the movement, but what it actually was? What was the fuss about?
So he didn't believe that the Transasia crash. He believed it was a real crash, but if you look at the evidence, it was absolutely ridiculous. It was a CGI green screen faked event. And his best arguments were, why would they do that on the other side of the world? Well, we're on the other side of the world to them. What difference? What's the motive? Well, I don't know what the motive is, but I could speculate. It could be to get people afraid of traveling. It could be to punish Asia for not agreeing with some UN documents, some treaties or whatever. There's a lot of reasons, the whole MH17 flight and all of the stuff they are trying, Agenda 21, they're trying to push us all into city living and not have us have cars and not have us free to travel. And it's all conditioning. So, I can only speculate on what the reason for Transasia was, but if you look at the evidence of Transasia, there's no doubt whatsoever that it was a complete faked event. And it might have even been filmed 5 years earlier. We don't even know when it was filmed.
Sure, like the Osama bin Laden footage with him getting ever and ever younger.
Did you hear that Osama bin Laden, they found his will yesterday? And
didn't know that, no.
And he is saying that we should pay attention to climate change. So Osama is pushing the climate change agenda.
Unreal.
Yeah.
That's just frightening. I mean, kind of what I wanted to get out of that, although a great Transasia, but kind of what I'm angling for is you've got people in this movement that's got the word truth in it. And then you have what I would consider to be the biggest lie in human history exposed. And they've essentially braced against it. In other words, they've fallen back into the usual rhetoric that is spouted in the school system and taught and presented on the TV and media, and all the things you presented against me when I was playing devil's advocate for the Globe, how can that possibly be in an arena that's searching out truth?
So, finding out that we live on a flat Earth is really shakes the foundation of everything. When you're an impressionable child, you go to school, they're like, hey, before I teach you what 1 + 1 is or how to put your shoes on, look, we live here on this globe. And you're like, wow. And that's set in your brain. And that is a very difficult to get out. And then everything that's a given. We don't even question it. So there's two possibilities with somebody like Jeff Clown. Is he's a paid shill, or he is just, his ego cannot handle something this shattering, and he's doing everything he can. There's a third possibility, and this is where mind control comes in. People are like, oh, mind control. Mind control is so easy. It's simple hypnosis, let alone the more advanced stuff that they do. But I used to do hypnosis back in college, and it was really easy. But you could tell somebody that they're the president of the United States and that you're going to convince everybody in the room that you're the president. So that person wakes up and they're like, well, yes, they will pull out anything and they'll believe what they're saying. So sometimes, somebody, maybe it happened to Tiger Dan. I think something more nefarious happened to him, but maybe he's mind controlled, or like, the flat earth is garbage. You're going to do everything you can, because his arguments are so poor that I'm like, he's not that dumb. He's a smart guy. How could he have such a poor argument? So mind control, shill, or just ego weakness. And I'm going to go with just ego weakness.
Yeah. I mean, the one I liked was it's our conditioning. In other words, I think most people will agree that we're told from a very early age that the notion of the earth being flat is absolutely ludicrous and is to be ridiculed. I mean, some of the stuff that flat earthers endure is akin to, if it was a religious belief, it would definitely be considered racial hatred. But because it's flat earth, it's positively encouraged.
It's synonymous with moron, idiot, stupid. When you say flat earth, you just called somebody a moron. It's
retard is the one that you hear more often than anything.
Well, it's flat cards.
The show, but it's like saying, by saying it's retarded, it's like saying it's been regressed back. In other words, you're using thoughts that are ancient and outdated. But it's bizarre that we've got old facts of flat earth and that it was established as the norm, and people 500, 600 years ago would debate this and say, well, of course it's flat. And yet now 500 years down the line, you have the polar opposite. And, despite it very obviously being flat, you have people bracing against it and tell you till they're blue in the face that it's a globe in the face of every single proof that you could put forward.
It's such a fascinating phenomena that, how people will brace against this, how they will not hear what you're saying. Mark Sargent, I just heard it was recorded a months ago. He was on Jimmy Church's show, who's does weekends on Coast to Coast sometimes, and he did a full show. Did you hear it?
I didn't.
It was a good interview, but Jimmy could not hear. Jimmy's like, well, I've seen boats go over the horizon. And Mark said, well, that's just because, our visually we can't see it, but you get a good, now with Zoom cameras. He goes, no, not with technology, what I can see. And Mark's like, all right, what you think you see is it go over the horizon. So now there's a hump of water in between you. So it doesn't matter if you had the Hubble telescope, you shouldn't be able to see it. But even with cheap binoculars, it comes back in sight. And Jimmy's like, no. That's what I see. And he could not comprehend that, because it would break his paradigm. Although Jimmy's come a long way, where he did a 3-hour show with Mark, scratching his head. He's on his way to becoming a flat earther, in my opinion.
I mean, I had a really good flat Earth proof given to me by a non-flat earther recently, and it was whilst talking about sort of cognitive dissonance and disconnects, and essentially the person was pointing out how Sarah Palin had been ridiculed for saying that she could see Russia from Alaska, and the media quoted her out of context and made it seem like she was saying she could sit on her backyard and see it and see Russia. Whereas in reality, she was talking about being on an island off Alaska and seeing Russia at about 35 miles away. And I said, well, that's a very real flat earth proof that they've suddenly turned around and ridiculed and made her look stupid with. But what she's actually pointed out is that she should see something that should be behind the curve of the earth.
Yeah, actually, I'd never even thought about that. I know about the quote. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. I'm going to have to look into that now. There was you're familiar with the Sandy Hook story, and that's a total hoax, right? So James Tracy, who
in the UK, we get to see what you guys do, so it's not really on our TV screens, if you know what I mean.
Right. So do you know who James Tracy is? James Tracy, just real quick, and this is flat Earth related. James Tracy is a Florida University professor that studies. The course he taught was called Media Studies, and basically it's about examining the media. And he, like a week after Sandy Hook, publicly came out and said, something's not right with this. And then Anderson Cooper fried him, saying, that this is a conspiracy theorist, and tried to shut him up. And he was very outspoken. He was involved in the making of We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook, as well as I was. And he done many articles on it. So recently he was fired from his university for his involvement with such ludicrous conspiracy theory. It's a more involved story, but somebody wrote an open letter to the university saying, how can Florida University, FAU, be, that this is obviously a fake event, and that they're losing all credibility. It was a great letter, but in the letter, they're like, you're just, you have to go up against the general opinion. I'm butchering this letter, but he goes, years ago we knew that the earth, was everybody thought the earth was flat, but then Copernicus came around and the earth is a ball, and then he was almost jailed for that, almost murdered. And they're using flat, or how you have to stand up to learn the truth. And I was just reading this article and I'm shaking my head. It's unbelievable. It's on Memory Hole blog. You check it out, or you could find it. I didn't even post it because I was so disgusted. They're just using that example as the reason that he's right. And I'm just like, if they only knew what they were doing. I don't know if I butchered that story, but it was pretty shaking this morning.
It's ridiculous. And I question some of the mainstream exposure that flat Earth has had with B.O.B. and Tila Tequila. What are your thoughts on those semi-celebrity in the case of Tila Tequila, but it's mainstream media coverage? What do you make of it?
Those are two individuals with certain reputations. I didn't know who B.O.B. was. I heard the name Tila. What were they? Are they flat earthers like us and decided to say something, or were they inserted into this narrative? I don't know the answer to that, but even bad publicity is good publicity, because the truth will set the way. When Jeff Clown was making these videos about me, it spurred me on to make other videos. And I get so many messages like, oh my God, I watched this video. And then I watched yours. Oh my God, the earth is flat. So Jeff, keep doing what you're doing. You're waking up lots of people to the flat earth.
Well, did you do your perspective with like a ball-shaped torch? Did that come as a reaction to Jeff C?
Absolutely. So I got the idea for the video, and I was like, wait a minute, I can show this perspective. And I built the whole set, and I did it within an hour or two, maybe 3. I don't know. Time flies when, it's timeless when you're making these videos. I'm like, oh my God, I've been at this for 11 hours. And I did it. And And I told the story where the camera was there and the tripod was there. And at the other end of the counter, my girlfriend had hung up this blown glass pink ball. I'm like, wait a minute, that looks like a sun. And I put a flashlight on it. I'm like, oh, it's perfect. And I did it knowing that I would see it get eclipsed. But if you look at it, the sun was going down like this. And I know that I was going level. So then I'm watching the final result and I'm like, that looks really familiar. And Jeff did a video which started this whole thing. I showed the African time lapse where it was a dry sunset and the sun just got smaller and smaller and didn't set until it just faded out and then finally went behind what I call a bump on the land. And Jeff's like, this is obviously fake. You know, the sun doesn't set like that. This is what the sun sets like. And he shows a nice moist sunset where the sun goes down. I'm like, that looks exactly like what I did. And I put them side by side. I'm like, it looks exactly the same. As a matter of fact, PK was watching it in Australia, and he's sending me Skype messages. He goes, I don't get your video. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And then after a minute, he goes, oh, I thought that was the real sun on the left. He thought my glass ball.
He thought your torch was the real sun.
Yeah, it looked that good. So I'm like, done. And it was a great video.
It's really nice when you can model something and literally put the real thing, the actual sun setting right next to it, and there's no question. It's the same. You prove how it works.
So Jeff and his clown buddy Press, they come after me on these videos, and then when I make a response to them that really shows it undebunkable, silence. Nothing. They, you know, if they were real researchers, they would come out and go, you know what? This is wow, I was wrong. That's very interesting. Would you like to come on our show and talk about it? I would actually go on their show and talk about it, but they're not. They're clowns. They're not here for the truth. That whatever their agenda is to make their egos feel good, or they're mind controlled, pushing out disinformation. I don't know, but they're clowns.
Fair enough. I mean, you say that they're pushing out disinformation, and there's been people on this side of the pond as well that have called Flat Earth quite literally a psychological operation. And I kind of want to get across to people that the psychological operation is actually the globe, and that is where all the programming and expense and money goes into. Is there something that you can maybe sum it up for people who might be watching?
You know, the powers that be want us separated from our true power. They want us in a state of fear, asking for their help. And the globe is the way to do that. You know, if people knew that we lived on a flat plane, that we were part of God, that we have free will, and that our life, we can manifest things in our life just, with our thoughts. Everything. This pad was a thought before it became a pad. Everything. My computer, Steve Jobs, had a thought, and then everything is manifested through thoughts. I've created my life by thoughts. People that are miserable create miserable lives. People that are open and free create freedom, and they don't want us having that because you can't control that.
I mean, I can now picture Russian vids screaming at the screen saying, Steve Jobs' first computer was $666.66. I mean, they put a lot of this stuff in plain sight. Why do they expose it to us?
I am dancing with the devil. I got my iPhone. It's tracking me. I got my Apple computer, the bite out of the Apple. If you ever seen the Apple headquarters, it's set like an ovum where it's set like a it's like a cell being sterilized. You got to check it out. And the whole thing with Wi-Fi and the computers and the radiation from all this stuff, they're depopulating us with silent weapons, and all of this stuff is horrible. But I believe that there were flat Earth movements years ago. But think about it. We have the internet. Where you're in Britain, right, or the UK somewhere. I'm here on the East Coast, and we can communicate instantly, and we're still having difficulty, reaching people. But before the internet, there's probably pockets of people like, oh my God, the earth is flat. They can't get information out. They can't get it in the newspaper. They can't get on a radio station. I mean, we have instant communication globally, and we're still having difficulty. So I believe that there's pockets of people all over that know this stuff. Now the internet is allowing us to gain some traction. And, you know, is it possible that if we get enough traction, they're just going to pull the switch and turn off the internet? Yeah, very possible.
Oh, do you really think so? Do you think that's what would happen? I mean, possibility, obviously, but.
So if you really, really, really think about the enormity of the control system and how long it's been going on, what if the biggest lie is that we don't die? What if the biggest lie is that these are just vessels, and then we immediately go into another vessel? And if you are enlightened, if you are living a high vibration, the next vessel you're in, you're aware of everything before. But because we're in such a low vibration, we basically restart, and we don't progress. We don't progress our spiritual journey. But these assholes do, because they know it, and they have these plans that are hundreds of years long. You can't even conceive of a 100-year plan because we're not going to be here that long. So, they don't want us knowing this. What was your original question? I
can't remember, but what I will say, I had a chat with Antonio Subrats earlier on today, and one thing that he put into the mix was that there's a possibility that rather than them knowing that we have eternal life or life after death, or we move on to another vessel, that actually they're hiding the fact that they don't know. So if you look at the maps as an example, they haven't got the slightest clue where we live, and they've had 500 years to create a false reality, which is the globe. But ultimately speaking, it's creating an illusion of having an all-powerful, all-knowing civilization, and science is that all-knowing, all-powerful thing. When you take that away, you're left with a lot of people who claim to be powerful, knowing very little. So it may be the case that they're on the same level as us. They can speculate and theorize, and the net result of that is the globe. But ultimately, the powers that should not be just don't know very much at all.
That's very true. I think that they need us to manifest the world that they want. That maybe they don't have the power because there's not enough of them. Or maybe they don't have the power because they have no emotions, they're archons, or whatever the story is. They need the power of the people focused to create the world that they live in. They basically want our soul. And we give it to them willingly. But you have the right not to give it to them. You have the right to disconnect from the system. There's only 3 laws. Don't murder anybody, don't invade anybody's space, and keep your contracts. Whatever you agree to, do it. Don't break your contracts. Everything else is just statutes and bullcrap.
Sure. But people will take the brainwashing, though. I mean, we say brainwashing, but ultimately we probably mean something slightly different. But all of the programming that we get subject to, all of the globe lies and the subliminal messages, all point us towards power. So I think that it could be very well the case that the powers that should not be don't have any power, and all of the illusions are just there to deceive us into thinking that's the case.
Absolutely. It's the control system is so big that this is where I was going before. The control system is so big, and it's been planned for so long that they're not just going to let this thing blow up. Maybe they have a way with frequency of just resetting us, knocking us back, or just depopulate the planet. I mean, that's pretty extreme, and start over again, or just shut the power off for a year and nobody will remember the flat earth. Yeah. Turn the power off. No one's going to be talking flat earth.
Well, right? It would take about 2 or 3 meals before the entire planet descended into chaos.
Right. 2 or 3, 1 meal. As soon as people realize it's
maybe 1.
Yeah, it's crazy. But with the upcoming change, there's a change coming. It depends on how you look at it, what vibration you're on how you're going to deal with it. Because 2 people can be in the same situation. You go on a vacation with somebody, and then it snows 10 feet overnight. Okay. One person is going to be, oh my God, this is the worst. And the other person, me, is going to be like, this is the best thing ever. And I'm going to build snow forts, and I'm going to go out I'm going to climb a mountain. I'm going to jump in the snowbank. It depends on how you look at it. If the neighborhood catches on fire, you know what? I'm going to cook some food. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Cook some more.
Yeah.
So how do you actually get this? You said this information is really difficult to get across to people, even with the million miles of fiber as opposed to satellites linking us all together, so we can have conversations like this. How do we get the information to be more prevalent so that people can make the choice and make more informed decisions about where they actually live?
So I think it's a lot of things. The whole 2012, December 21st, was supposed to be the apocalypse. Well, guess what? It was. The apocalypse is the lifting of the veil. And it's basically like, taking the sheet off of somebody in the morning, they're waking up. Well, on a cosmic timescale, it doesn't happen in a minute. It happens over years, maybe not decades, maybe just years, and people are waking up. People, like when, 10 years ago, if I mentioned 9/11 to anybody, I would be hung. Now I can if somebody gives me 10 minutes, I can wake them up to 9/11. I plant some seeds, they start looking, the information's out there. People's vibrations are rising and they're waking up quicker. What's amazing is it's actually easier to wake someone up to the flat earth than it is to the big three. I was thinking that, if you look at the official stories of any of San Diego 9/11 or Boston, they're ridiculous. But the flat earth really resonates with people's souls. And, when you hear a truth, even though you don't know it's a truth, it resonates with you. Everything has a frequency and a vibration. And, and people feel that, but if they're in a state, in a state of fear, disconnected, shortage, they put up a wall and they can't hear or feel anything. So you have to get people feeling good and thinking, and stop drinking fluoride. And the awakening is happening, so to your question, how can you wake people? How can you do this? Well, I go to a dentist who I have convinced over the years to stop giving their fluoride. They no longer use fluoride toothpaste, no fluoride rinses for the kids. When parents come in and insist on fluoride rinses for the kids, she gives them the brochures that I gave them and said, you have to read this first or listen to this interview first, and is eliminated fluoride. So now those people are unfluoridated and they might be more receptive to catching a flat earth video or something. Because if you can think, you can see the truth. On 9/11, they had the anthrax scares. Remember that? Or the Capitol, the Senate, they all got letters with anthrax in them, supposedly. And I believe the antidote for anthrax was Cipro or whatever antibiotic. And all of Congress, all of our government was taking these twice a day or whatever, just as a precursor, even if they didn't get a letter. Well, the side effect of Cipro is confusion, inability to think clearly. So they drugged our entire government before, right after 9/11 happened. It might have even started before. Maybe the letter, I forget the timing, but it was genius. They gave everybody a drug that can confuse them so they couldn't think on 9/11. 9/11 was a theft of our consciousness.
I mean, 9/11 is something that a lot of people who aren't conspiratorial will, certainly in the UK, have seen on the Discovery Channel, both pro for the official story and con, if you want to look at it that way, for the conspiracy theories. Can you give us you said 10 minutes for all three, but give us your version of 9/11.
9/11, I mean, how it wasn't real? You mean you want to know some facts?
Absolutely. I mean, to anybody who just hears those words, 9/11 wasn't real, that might be a real shocking statement to them.
Yeah. There people say Building 7 is the smoking gun. A lot of people don't know that a 47-story steel reinforced building fell into its own footprint at 5:20 in the afternoon on 9/11, and they announced that it fell 20 minutes or so before it fell on CNN and the BBC. how would they know that? That's impossible. But that's not the real smoking gun. Building 6 is the smoking gun. Building 6, I think it was 6 or 10 stories or whatever it was. The entire inside of the building vanished. What the heck does that? I mean, it's gone. And there was very little rubble inside. And people were like, well, something fell and knocked it down. No, there would be a big pile. It wouldn't be crushed. It was literally like cut out with an X-Acto knife. The center of the building, all the way down to the ground, gone. I have a video. It's called Forget Building 7, Building 6, the 9/11 smoking gun or something like that. And it'll show you what happened there. People don't realize 7 buildings disappeared on 9/11. Not just 2 towers, 7 buildings, inexplainable. But one of my favorites is Shanksville. That's where the guys that rushed the cabin and crashed the plane. Where Cheney or somebody said, we shot it down. They slipped. Was it shot down? Was it not? Did they crash it? But the official story is the plane crashed at such a steep angle and so fast that the ground, don't laugh, the ground liquefied, swallowed the plane, wings, tail, wheels, people, luggage, everything. It went so deep, and then the ground solidified over it, and it was so deep that they could never get it out.
That's not the official story, though, surely.
No, that is the official story. And
that's the official story.
People can't even believe that that's the official story. And to this date,
that's the official story.
Go look it up. Check out my website, Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. I have different 9/11 pages, one called 9/11 Shanksville. There's information there. There's pictures. It's ridiculous. The Pentagon, there's no pictures of a plane hitting. There's 50, 60 cameras. They give us 3 frames, which basically show a missile, if that's what it was. The impossibilities of it. There's flying from the East Coast to the West Coast early in the morning on a weekday is a very attractive flight for business people because you can get all the way to California and have a full day of work because of the time change. It's a 5 or 6 hour flight, 3 hour time difference. So you leave at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're there 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. There was about 30 some odd flights that morning or every morning that go to the West Coast, and they're usually always booked solid with people on the waiting list. On 9/11, there was 4 flights that were only 20 or 30% full. Can you guess what 4 flights those were?
The ones that went down.
Yeah, the ones that went down. And flight 11 and 175 weren't even scheduled to fly that day. So if they did fly, where did they get passengers from? If you look at the pictures of the buildings, Ron Johnson has a great clip where it shows the second plane hitting, and the CGI is horrible. There's layering issues. The wing goes behind a building that's in the distance, and then as it's crossing the edge of the building, the white strip on the edge of the building is in front of the wing, then it's behind the wing. It's ludicrous. It's anybody that looks, but the problem is it blows your paradigm apart. The government, your parents, are here to protect you. You've been taught your whole life the government is here. You elect them. They're out for your interest. But guess what? The opposite of that is true. Now, there are good people in government, but they're puppets. They don't know. They don't. You don't get what you want. You get what the people that are controlling the government want.
I mean, one of the things that I read was that they'd shut down all of the security defenses and were running a drill. Is that correct?
They were running, I think, 7 different drills that day. And they were all over the place. Everybody was, and the drills were hijacked planes crashing into buildings. And I even believe one of the drills was crashing into the World Trade Towers. And then after 9/11, Condoleezza Rice and President Bush in separate statements said, we could never even have imagined that terrorists would use airplanes like missiles and fly them into buildings. They said that. They
couldn't even imagine it, could they?
They couldn't even imagine it, but they had 7 different drills going on that morning.
For that exact scenario.
For that exact scenario, right. And there's movies that talk about it, and there's, you know, I'm sure if you watch Russian vids, he put out a video about the World Wrestling Federation in '98 doing about taking down the Twin Towers, you know, and crumbling down. It's incredible. It's predictive programming. The movie Lethal Weapon, I did a video where, and I remember watching the movie, the original Lethal Weapon. The two cops are going into a house, and the house has a chimney on it, and in the background there's a jumbo jet flying. It has nothing to do with the scene, and as soon as it touched the chimney, you know, in perspective, the house blows up. And I said, what did that have to do with that? But and then that was years ago. Then when 9/11 happens, we see images and we don't understand what's going on, and our brain is scrambling for an answer, like what happened. So you pick pieces of memories, and there's a little piece that comes in to your mind, and you don't even know that it's there, and it's shaping what you think.
Yeah, this is the essence of predictive programming, and the same principle applied to the moon landings. In other words, we have information about what's going to take place given to us in books and on TV long before, and then they actually present you with the farcical suspension of disbelief that is the notion of landing on the moon, which is a light in the sky, but they portray it as terra firma.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's all based on trauma-based mind control. They keep us separated. They keep us in fear, and then they traumatize us, and then they mind control us. So on 9/11, we're all traumatized. You'll agree. You know, like, what the hell just happened? The highest TV rated moment in history of the world was on the morning of 9/11. Everyone's staring at their TV. Everyone in the United States is traumatized, and around the world, and they're trying to put it together. And we've heard a plane hit. So Osama bin Laden, they're programming with us. And then Rick Leventhal, traitor to the country, is out on the street, and he grabs a random freelance reporter for Fox News, and the guy comes out. He's called the Harley Shirt Guy, and let me just tell you what he said. You know about the Harley Shirt Guy?
I think so.
He comes out, and basically I have to say it, and then we can move on. He goes, I live just 5 blocks away on the 47th floor. I saw the whole thing. He goes, I was watching the first tower burn when out of nowhere came another plane. It reamed into the building, going through and coming out the other side. Then the buildings collapsed, mostly due to structural failure because the fires were too intense. Okay. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, a fake agency that investigated 9/11, didn't even come out with that until 6 months later. But we're all sitting there traumatized, focused, hypnotized, looking for an explanation. And this guy says that. It's on all the networks for broadcasting it. That's weird too.
I see now. I see what you're saying. So he had the full backstory, the explanation, the logic behind it, the details about everything. The plane, and everything. And it was moments after it happened.
And your brain is looking for an example. Like right now, like if something fell off the counter in your room, you would have to have an explanation. You have to put an explanation on everything you see, or you become disoriented. You'd be like, okay, there was a gust of wind. It was near the edge. I hit the table and it vibrated. Or a mouse ran by. Something. You have to come up with an explanation for everything in your life. Your brain is doing this all day long so you can make sense of the reality that we live in. So that explanation goes into your subconscious, and it's very difficult to remove because you don't have another one.
But you had, I seem to remember the building owner being caught on an interview talking about pulling the building, which is a demolition term.
So I don't believe that was by accident. That is controlled opposition. He got everybody to believe that the building was collapsed with controlled demolition. It for the people that are waking up, that's a trap. Brings you right into architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, which won't look at the real evidence. They'll only focus on Building 7, which helps wake people up. But once you realize that they're full of it, and that's not what happened. The only way to find out what really happened is you have to get the book, Where Did the Towers Go? By Dr. Judy Wood. It's available on all major, Amazon or whatever you guys use over there. It's about $45. read it cover to cover, and then make up your own mind. There's a million shills out there. This video is now going to get trolled because they're like, alert, alert, Dr. Wood. You know, he's telling them about Dr. Wood, and they're going to convince you not to look at the book. Okay, but nothing in this book has been debunked. It's what really happened on 9/11.
I mean, this brings me to the main question, which is why? Why do they do this?
9/11. So it's all about control. They want us all, you know, pinned down. They want us depopulated by 90%. It's not like they wrote it in stone. Oh, wait a minute. They did write it in stone. The Georgia Guidestones. Do you know about the Georgia Guidestones?
Yes.
Okay. So it's written in stone that they want to depopulate the planet to 500 million people, right? From 8 or 9 billion, whatever the number is. They want it down to 500 million and never to let the population get above that. Okay. They wrote it in stone. It's all about 9/11 made us give up our God-given rights. When you say, listen to my phone calls, take my guns, whatever it is, you have the right to say that. But they needed a catalyzing event like 9/11 to literally steal our ability to think, steal our rights, and herd us like cattle into Agenda 21.
So is there a connection to that and the globe lie?
Absolutely. It's all about control. I think they realize that people are going to wake up to the globe lie, but they're hoping it's too late by the time people do. From yours and my point of view, it's amazing that people believe the globe lie, but go out in the street, every single person you're going to see believes it. It's our numbers are growing. We're up to almost 5 million YouTube flat earth videos, 5 million in less than a year. That's amazing. But how many people in your neighborhood know about the flat earth?
None. I mean, I am one of one, as far as I know, in my local area. And jumping people from comatose to flat earth is difficult. But I'm finding that NASA fakery, just like, the big three, is a good stepping stone. So, everybody check out my channel, DITRH, find your favorite 2-minute NASA video and send it to a friend and go, hey, check this out. NASA is fake, it's amazing. I also am making t-shirts, which I think you're going to link in this video, called the International Fake Station. Check it out. I made them because I wanted one, and people have been asking me for t-shirts, and I think it's a cool t-shirt and a sweatshirt too. They make it in different styles. Check it out. Can you round us out by basically telling us about Truth is Stranger Than Lies, and then rattle off the names of your YouTube channels, and I'll thank the listeners for tuning in, and we'll sign out if that's good by you.
Awesome. So Truth is Stranger Than Lies is a show that Patricia Steer and I started, where we talk a lot about flat earth and other subjects too. We usually interview somebody else on each show. And it's on talknetwork.com, which was started by Mike Adams, who's the health ranger. I don't know if you know who he is, naturalnews.com. But the network has since shifted. It's no longer streaming live. It's all on SoundCloud. So Patricia and I are going to be taking that show to the new network called the Flat Earth Network. And we're on a little bit of a hiatus, but if you want to find our shows, you can just go on SoundCloud, search the Truth is Stranger Than Lies, and there's some great shows there. They're also somebody's mirroring them on several YouTube channels. I think Patricia has them on her channel too, if you want to watch them on YouTube. So,
and what's the name of your sort of backup YouTube channel and your main YouTube channel?
So my main YouTube channel is DITRH, stands for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. I also have a Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole fully spelled out, but I really just use that for Google Hangouts because sometimes I can't get on with the other one. But I'm strike free right now. I just got released from making long video prison. But you know what? I kind of like it. When I used to make longer videos, but now I can only make short ones, and I like short ones because you know, somebody that believes in the ball isn't going to watch an hour documentary from ODD TV, but they will watch a 2-minute video, then they'll watch a 3-minute video, then they'll watch a 10-minute video, and then their life is ruined because they realize they live on a flat earth.
Yeah, once they've got that flat bug, there ain't no going back, unfortunately.
So my my Facebook pages are, you know, exposing the big three. I have Ball Earth Skeptic, which stemmed off of when we did the Ball Earth Skeptic Google Chat with John Laban, Matrix, Decode, and we had different guests on all the time. But that's just a Facebook page where I take videos like your videos and Patricia's and my videos and stuff, and I just compile them because not everybody dedicates, you know, 27 hours a day to going through videos. I take the best ones and I put them on there. So what I recommend that people do for their family and friends that aren't awake is if you get a hold of their iPhone or use their computer for a moment, go on Baller Skeptic and like it. Go on your channel and like it. Just start liking these things so stuff ends up in their news feed. It's like throwing seeds out all over the place. Stuff will grow. So I highly recommend people do that unethical thing, like these pages for other people.
And you did ask me to mention before we finish about a book that you've got.
Yeah. Also, everything is on my website, deepinsidetherabbithole.com or ditrh.com. Takes you to the same place. Links to all my site. I think Edward Hendry sent me this book. I think it's the author of the book. Before I went on vacation, he sent me this book called The Greatest Lie on Earth, Proof That Our World is Not a Moving Globe. It's a great book. It's a lot of stuff that we already know. But if you gave this to somebody that likes reading books or put it as a coffee table book, it really lays it out in a great manner. And nobody can read this book and not be a flat earther before they're halfway through it. So
superb.
That's it. And you know, everybody buy a t-shirt and sweatshirt only if you want it, because, you know, I'm like people are like, you're a sellout, you're selling stuff. You know what? I look at it like the old lady that makes apple pies. She loves making them. And guess what? She's now going to sell them at the farmer's market because people love buying them. So if you want a shirt that will wake up people, check out my my flat earth shirts, or if you see anyone else's that you like, buy theirs. I'm not wearing my flat earth shirt. I bought one from somebody that said the globe, the biggest lie ever told. Love it.
I mean, I will address that actually. I was going to just sign off at that point and say thanks for being here. But I will say that to anybody who says that people are sellouts because they flog stuff that's flat earth related, you've got cats. You could take a picture of your cats and put them on a t-shirt and you would make 10 times as much money and you would get no ridicule for doing it. So to be accused of trying to hock a profit off basically doing a bit of work is ludicrous, especially when there's far better topics for making profit.
Love what you do what you love, whatever it is, you know. There's you know, if I could dedicate if I could make money in flat earth, that would be my job. I would do it full time, because
absolutely, me too. I love doing it, and if I could be paid for it, I absolutely would in a heartbeat.
Right. So everybody donate to Nathan, give him money, because the more money he has, the more shows he can do.
Well, I've got no donate button, so but yeah, I like the sentiment. Yeah, give me money. David Weiss, you've been an absolutely superb guest. Thank you ever so much for being on Flat Earth UK Live.
All right. Thanks so much. Great being here. The beginning was very annoying. I might have to drink because of it.
You really were. You're a great sport. And to all of you in the chat who have joined us for Flat Earth UK Live tonight, it's been brilliant having you here. I've been Nathan Oakley. I'll see you all in the next video.